especially if the Steelers can get inside of a bidding war with another team trying to move up and get Willis. But man, just in theory, I mean, that sounds really, really nice. My only thing, and it doesn't matter if they get him at 16, 20, 25, or wherever, you have to be comfortable with letting Willis sit at least half of the first season. At
Yeah,
least. Like you cannot throw him into the fire right away. Whatever happens with it looks like Mason Rudolph right now is going to be the starter. Whatever happens with him, you need to write it out. 6-0, 0-6, 3-3, whatever that record looks like, you need to write it out with Mason and understand that rookie quarterbacks take time in the NFL to develop. We saw it with Josh Allen. Josh Allen was getting slandered. Memes were getting made after that dude his first couple of years in the league. And now look at him. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. The point in case in point, these things take time. And especially now with social media and Twitter, we are so reactionary as football fans, as a society, as game evaluators, to where if Malik Willis goes and balls out, I mean, they're going to be hailing him as like the next Lamar Jackson, the next Big Ben for the next 10 years. But if he goes out and he does not have a great rookie season, people are going to be willing to write him off immediately. We saw it with Tua down in Miami. That dude hasn't even played a full schedule as a starter, and they're already trying to go and find somebody else. It's just it's super wild. So I think, should Willis be the guy there? Should they move up to get him? One, I love the price for that. I'll do that 8 days a week. 2, you got to have patience. You have to have patience. But just in terms of moving up to go get Willis, I would love that. And I would really, really like that.
So 2 things. One, what teams would be behind the Steelers? You mentioned a bidding war. What teams would possibly be behind the Steelers that you could even say would try to move up at that point? I don't know if there was a team left behind them that'll need a quarterback outside of maybe the Buccaneers, but I would expect the Buccaneers to be in running for a veteran.
So there's the Saints there at number 18 that might try to trade up and get Willis. The Eagles have been kind of rumored to not love Jalen Hurts next year, so they might make a play up to go and get him. After that, it's kind of very dry, but you never know. If Aaron Rodgers departs Green Bay, the Packers are very much in play to go and get a quarterback next year, because I've seen multiple reports that they are not in love with Jordan Love.
But if you're not in love with Jordan Love, but it's kind of like the Pittsburgh Steelers at this point. And even worse, I would say, you wasted a first-round pick. Like, you can't just give up on him without an opportunity. That's a Josh Rosen situation. And I get that worked out for the Cardinals, but they had the number 1 pick to say Jordan Allen, we're going to get rid of Jordan Love, for Malik Willis. I mean, I don't know, but either way, okay. So the Packers, the Saints, maybe. So there is a couple of teams in there. 2, what is the timeline? So it's very hard to convince someone that you should just suck for a season, that it's just okay to suck for a season. And I understand as well as you do that that's just, reality in the NFL. It is what it is. Yeah. It's pretty much reality in any sport. What's the timeline? You can't go 0-6. A team can't go 0-6 with a first-round quarterback sitting on the bench and saying we're going to keep him on the bench.
The Bears almost did it last year. You absolutely
can. But they didn't do it.
You have to remember. You have to remember this is a longer-term process, bro.
Yeah. But you have to think like an NFL GM, not like somebody sitting here saying, they do have to suck. We both know that they have to suck for at least one season. But an NFL GM, Art Rooney's not going to walk in on Monday after being 0-6 and saying, this is okay. The Bears, I kind of felt like were in a different situation. They weren't really happy with their head coach. They were giving Andy Dalton an opportunity, and Andy Dalton's a much more proven player than Mason Rudolph. So if you're 0-4, if you're 0-3, if you're 0-6, what is that timeline before somebody steps in and goes, okay, Malik Willis has got to play? Because, Tebow got his way into Denver when Kyle Orton had them at 6-2. So if Mason Rudolph starts 1-3, those boos are going to be loud.
Oh yeah. And even the first time Mason turns the ball over, or the first time they end up, like, if they're losing at halftime at home, for an example, they're gonna hear boo birds. People in Pittsburgh do not like Mason Rudolph. I think, to answer your question, it's all going to boil down to what are the goals of the Steelers. What is, whoever is the GM of the Pittsburgh Steelers and Mr. Rooney, what are their goals? Because if their goals are to go out and win a Super Bowl, you shouldn't have rolled with Mason Rudolph and a rookie quarterback into 2022 to begin with. If your goal is to make the playoffs, then you would kind of start to entertain, sure, give Malik Willis a chance. We're 0-6. We need to turn around something. Sure, go through them. But if your goal as an organization is to develop a young quarterback into potentially being a franchise quarterback, you can't throw him out there. If that team is 0-6, it's not all Mason Rudolph's fault. Can we agree on that? Like, it is not.
I agree.
Okay.
I would play Mason Rudolph the whole season. I think that's a different story, though, than how an NFL team operates.
No, absolutely. But, like, you have to understand too. And that's why I point out whoever is, trying to run the show at that point, what are their goals? Because if the goal is to make sure Malik Willis is properly groomed into being a franchise guy, you don't throw him out there. If you're trying to shut people up and make them happy, then you throw him out there. But what's going to happen? He's going to go like 0-4, 1-3, 1-5 as a starter, maybe 2-6. And then the dude's going to get his confidence shot because his offensive line can't block. He's got the TikTok boy pointing for the first down when the clock's running at the end of the game. It's just that it's a complete mess, especially under Matt Canada too, by the way. Let's go ahead and point that out. That rookie,
but that's a good point there. Matt Canada, you got a lot of guys, a brand new GM, an offensive coordinator on thin ice, and a coach who has never had a losing season. Those are three guys that are not going to take losing. They could care less about the development of Malik Willis because they'll lose their jobs before Malik Willis will come and become anything proven if they continue to lose. So you can't, the goal is always to win.
Right.
Like, it has to be.
No, absolutely. Yeah. 100%.
I'm not saying that I'm not saying that they can go 0-16 or that they should go 1-2 and can Mason Rudolph. I think my timeline is a little shorter than yours. Like, I think Mason Rudolph has 3 games before that pressure is so hot that if he doesn't win in that 4th game, it's over. No matter what. They can have the worst offensive line in football. Najee Harris can be hurt already and out for the season, and the defense can be playing absolutely atrocious. And they could lose a bunch of guys. Say Minka like holds out till like week 4. They got 4 games before, in my mind, Art Rooney and everybody else is like, sorry, dude, you're done.
But see, here's the thing. I'm not saying they should tank. What I'm saying is that whatever the results of Mason Rudolph are, they are. But they would have had to understand that going into right now, going into this offseason, that like if they don't go out and they don't make major moves for a top quarterback, not even in the draft, just like in general, like in the league, if they don't make any moves like that, you have to understand the risk that comes with that. Especially if you go out and you get Malik Willis, like you just have to know that like it can either go really good or really bad. But like however that pans out, for better or for worse, Mason just needs to be the guy. So you can either the X amount of the game plan forever and say, look, like Mason Rudolph does not have what it takes. We've seen a full slate of starting games from him to understand that. And then after that, sure, Malik Willis, it's your show, bud. Here you go. I'm just saying, man, like these things and these quarterbacks take time.
I agree that they take time. I definitely agree that they take time. I don't think that the Steelers are going to give their quarterback any time at all because there's just too many jobs on the line there. Mike Tomlin's reputation's on the line there. And think about it. Think about how loud ESPN is going to get. Think about how loud
you also have
First
to remember, Mike Tomlin has not shied away from slowly integrating rookies into their roles. Think about Devin Bush. Think about Kevin Dotson. 2 guys who immediately in their rookie year were seen as top tier options when compared to their starting counterparts. And at Mike Tomlin, it didn't let any outside noise face him. He slowly started to integrate them into the game plans. And I feel like if the Steelers do take a quarterback like Malik Willis, or even Kenny Pickett at this point, like, are we so sure Kenny Pickett starts over Mason Rudolph next year? I'm not.
I would think Kenny Pickett's got a much better opportunity to start over.
I would agree, but at the end of the day, I don't think Kenny Pickett's the starting guy if to take him in the first round, not over Mason Rudolph, maybe week 2 or 3, but not week 1. Absolutely not.
I don't know about absolutely not. I think that last year I would be a lot more on your side with this, but this offseason kind of seems like I just think that when it's all said and done, nobody in the Steelers front office or coaching staff is going to be okay with stinking. And they're going to stink with Mason Rudolph. I mean, you got to think Duck Hodges started football games for the Pittsburgh Steelers because they were not going to lose.
If they weren't okay with stinking, they would not have had the offseason they did last year.
But I think that they had so many holes that I think I don't see, like, I disagree with that one too.
What's different? What's different from last offseason to this offseason in terms of holes? This team heading into this offseason is not in a better place than it was last offseason. Now they're searching for a franchise quarterback.
Yeah, but so I agree with all of this, but I think they had that idea. They had to take some risk at quarterback because they needed other pieces in line. And I agreed with some of them. They didn't pan out, but I liked getting a running back. You add a running back, that makes Mason Rudolph's job a hell of a lot easier whenever he does become the starter. You tried to get a center. It didn't work out, but you tried. You tried to get a tackle. You tried to clear up some of these holes. They didn't pan out. It was a bad offseason for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'll give you that one. But I think that Father Time is catching up to them, to the fact where they have a bunch of holes because they've hit that point in their course where they're going to have a bunch of holes. I still don't think that they're playing this as if it's a long-term thing. I think that they're playing it as in we're trying to win right now. They just made a bunch of bad moves last offseason. That's how I view that.
Okay.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I agree with your approach. I'm just saying, I'm just looking at it from the Steelers standpoint when it comes to that. Like, I just don't think that I think if they lose week 1, it'll be okay. If they lose week 2, it'll be okay. If they lose week 3, Mike Tomlin's starting to talk about maybe we need to make some changes. And then if they lose week 4 and they start out 0-4, Malik Willis or Kenny Pickett or Marcus Mariota or Dwayne Haskins is the starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
So I'll walk back my comments on Pickett because I do think if the Steelers did start 0-3, 0-2, or like 0-4, like that kid would be very, very hot, knowing that Pickett is probably the most quote unquote pro-ready quarterback in this draft class.
Yeah.
I think at this point, it just boils down to what should be reasonable and then what the Steelers are actually going to do. Because I think you made a very good point that the Steelers, especially with like a defense that they feel can win now, are going to try to win football games. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, if they feel like Malik Willis can give them a better option than Mason Rudolph at, down the stretch of the season, they will probably put him in. I guess my point of view would be the last thing I would want for Willis is to come here, get demolished behind a very bad offensive line and just, very little other support on offense besides Najee Harris and besides Deontay Johnson. I don't want that dude's confidence to be shattered, because how many times have we seen that where a quarterback goes into a team, gets no protection at all, has to run around for his life, and then that's just unfold into a quarterback nobody thought they would be at the next level.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, and that's my biggest argument with Kenny Pickett is people are going to have a superstar mentality, an expectation of him the second he walks in the door, and the second he is not what they expected, those boos are going to get loud. I think the same is going to be with Malik Willis. I think that people are going to be very hard on whatever the next quarterback is. They are going to be incredibly hard on him without the understanding that this team is a disaster and they're trying their best. Now, that being said, I don't know if you use your first round pick on a quarterback this season and you don't use your second round pick on an offensive lineman. I don't know how much better not this upcoming season, the season after that is as well, because this offensive line needs to be fixed. And until this offensive line is fixed, this offense is going to stink. So Malik Willis might not start this year, but if he starts next year and they don't use an offensive lineman or a high draft pick on an offensive lineman this year and next year, I think that he's walking in the same situation Mason Rudolph's going to be walking into.
Do you think people will be more lenient and more willing to give Malik Willis time, knowing how people treat Mason Rudolph and like just knowing their overall like dissatisfaction with him, like their hatred for, having watched Mason Rudolph and having, seen him play the last couple of years, do you think people would be like, let's say like Malik Willis goes out into the field, or even Kenny Pickett for, this example, first game or like first couple games throws like 5 interceptions in his first 2 or 3 games. Like
Malik Willis or Mason Rudolph?
Sorry, Malik Willis or Kenny Pickett, any rookie quarterback.
Okay.
Do you think the leash for them is going to be longer, considering they're a rookie and considering their name just is not Mason Rudolph?
Yes and no. So with the fans, yes, and with probably a lot of the local media, the good local media, yes. With national media, with ESPN, with guys like First Take, radio guys, no way. No way. It's over the second that you throw an interception, and all expectations go out the door. But they ride that roller coaster. We all know that they ride that roller coaster. Yeah. I do think that the fans, like Mason Rudolph, could throw one incompletion, and he is going to get booed so loud. The Malik Willis, Kenny Pickett chants are going to be so loud. Whereas I think that if Willis or Pickett comes in here, plays poorly, I think if he plays poorly, but not poorly enough to lose them games, whoever it is, they're okay.
Yep.
You start losing games. You know what I mean? You start looking like maybe there's a lot more development here than we need. Then people, and I think that's the thing. That's kind of like an unspoken part of this whole like expectations thing, is that people aren't going to realize until they struggle how much development a guy like Malik Willis actually needs before he's a starting NFL quarterback. He's not like he needs a couple of games, or by his first season he'll be okay. It's maybe he needs 2 years. He doesn't really have great accuracy. He's going to make a lot of mistakes. He's going to run the football a lot more than he needs to. Maybe he gets injured. I just think that those things aren't going to click with people watching until they see him on the field. So I don't know. I think that's a very deep question, if we're being honest.
So here's the thing. Let's look at like Trevor Lawrence, for example. Trevor Lawrence this season, his rookie year, threw 12 touchdowns to 17 interceptions.
Okay. I think that...
Would that be acceptable in Pittsburgh?
Man. A lot of factors would go into that. So one, what's like the Steelers record needs to be...
Those guys are not Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, that's a big thing. They're not Trevor Lawrence. They're 17th pick in the draft. Do the Steelers get worse? Like if the Steelers make the playoffs, or at least are in contention for the playoffs, that's okay. If the Steelers are like 4-12, that is not okay. Not in my eyes, but that's, that will be the reaction.